The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor, and Maya's world shattered with it. But she wasn't crying over the glass. She was staring at her boyfriend Marcus, with his tongue down her sister Tessa's throat at what was supposed to be her own surprise birthday party. The worst part? Everyone knew. The pitying looks, the whispers, the way her best friend couldn't meet her eyes when she walked through that door. They all knew, and no one told her. Maya didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply turned around and walked out, her heels clicking against the floor like a countdown to an explosion that never came. At least, not yet. Because sometimes the most dangerous reactions are the quiet ones, the ones that simmer beneath the surface until they burn everything to the ground. And Maya was about to set her entire life on fire, though she didn't know it yet. Before we dive into how a heartbroken event planner became the wife of Seoul's most feared mafia boss, hit that subscribe button because this story gets darker, more twisted, and more romantic than you could ever imagine. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. The neon lights of Gangnam blurred through Maya's tears as she stumbled down the street, her vision clouded by a mixture of soju and heartbreak. She'd been in Seoul for 3 years, building her event planning business from nothing, learning the language, adapting to the culture, all while Marcus promised her forever. And Tessa, her baby sister who she'd helped pay through college, who she'd let stay in her apartment when she first arrived in Korea 6 months ago. The betrayal tasted like acid on her tongue. Maya found herself outside Eclipse, one of those exclusive bars where bottles cost more than her monthly rent. She'd planned events here before, knew the manager, and right now she needed to be somewhere that felt like power, like success, like she was worth something. The bouncer recognized her and let her through without question. Inside, the bar was all dark wood and darker secrets, filled with Korea's elite. Maya didn't care. She walked straight to the bar and ordered the most expensive whiskey they had in English, her Korean failing her in her emotional state. The bartender's eyes widened, but he reached for a bottle on the highest shelf, one encased in crystal and probably worth more than her car. "That bottle is $50,000, miss," he said carefully in English. "Perhaps something else?" Maya laughed, a bitter sound that didn't belong to her. "Pour it. I'm celebrating my complete and total humiliation." The bartender hesitated, but before he could respond, Maya's phone buzzed. A message from Tessa. "Maya, please, it's not what it looks like." A photo followed. It was exactly what it looked like. Her hand shot out, knocking the crystal bottle the bartender had been holding. Time slowed as the bottle arced through the air, tumbling end over end before exploding against the black marble floor. The smell of aged whiskey filled the air, expensive and suffocating. The entire bar went silent. Every conversation stopped. Every eye turned to her. And that's when Maya felt it, a presence behind her that made the hair on the back of her neck stand up. She turned slowly and found herself looking up at a man who seemed to absorb all the light in the room. He was tall, over 6 feet, with sharp features that looked carved from stone and eyes so dark they seemed to have no bottom. His suit probably cost more than everything she owned, and the way everyone in the bar had taken a subtle step back told her everything she needed to know. This man was dangerous. That, he said in perfect English with barely a trace of accent, was a 1926 Macallan, one of 12 bottles left in existence. His voice was quiet, controlled, the kind of quiet that preceded violence. Maya's alcohol-fogged brain struggled to process the number. $50,000. She'd just destroyed $50,000. Her business account had maybe $30,000 in it, and that was meant to last her through the next quarter. I can pay you back, she heard herself say, though she had no idea how. The man's lips curved into something that might have been a smile on anyone else, but on him looked predatory. "Can you? Do you have $50,000 in your purse, miss?" Maya Johnson. She lifted her chin, refusing to be intimidated even as her knees shook. "And no, I don't. But I'll pay you back. Every one. I'll set up a payment plan, I don't do payment plans." He took a step closer, and Maya caught his scent, something expensive and masculine that made her dizzy. Or maybe that was the soju. "I'm Jin Hyuk, and you've just become very interesting to me." The way he said interesting made it sound like a threat and a promise all at once. 2 men in black suits appeared at his sides, their faces expressionless. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. She'd heard stories about men like this, men who operated in Seoul's shadows, who smiled in boardrooms and buried bodies in the countryside. She'd planned events for some of them, though she'd always pretended not to know what they really did. "I don't have the money," Maya repeated, hating how her voice shook. "But I swear I'll find a way to pay you back. I have a business, I can." "Your event planning company?" Jin Hyuk tilted his head, studying her like she was a puzzle he was deciding whether to solve or destroy. "I know. You planned the Lee Corporation's anniversary gala last month. Impressive work. Though I doubt your business generates $50,000 in profit annually, let alone in liquid assets you can access immediately." The fact that he knew about her business, that he'd looked into her in the 30 seconds since she destroyed his whiskey, should have terrified her. It did terrify her. But it also made her angry. Today had been the worst day of her life, and now this? "Then what do you want?" Maya demanded. "You want me to work for you? You want my business?" "What?" Jin Hyuk's dark eyes gleamed with something she couldn't read. "Come to my office tomorrow. 10 a.m. The address will be sent to your phone." He glanced at the bartender, who immediately pulled out his phone. "We'll discuss your debt then." "And Miss Johnson." He leaned in close enough that she could feel his breath against her ear. "Don't even think about running. I always collect what I'm owed." Then he was gone, moving through the crowd that parted for him like water. Maya stood there, shaking, the smell of $50,000 whiskey rising from the floor around her feet, and wondered how her life had gone from bad to absolutely catastrophic in the span of 4 hours. The bartender appeared with a mop, his expression sympathetic. "You should go home, miss. And tomorrow? Don't be late. Mr. Jean doesn't like to be kept waiting." If you're already hooked and wondering what kind of deal a mafia boss could possibly offer a broke event planner, smash that like button and drop a comment telling me what you think Jin Hyuk wants from Maya. Maya didn't sleep that night. She lay in her apartment, staring at the ceiling, her phone clutched in her hand. The address had come through at midnight, an office building in Gangnam, top floor, the kind of place where empires were built and destroyed. She'd Googled Jin Hyuk, but found almost nothing. A few blurry photos at charity events, mentions of his name in business articles, always vague, always careful. The man was a ghost who somehow owned half of Seoul. At 9:30 a.m., Maya stood in front of a skyscraper that seemed to pierce the clouds, its black glass exterior reflecting the morning sun like armor. She'd dressed in her best suit, a navy blue number that made her look professional, capable, like someone who hadn't destroyed a $50,000 bottle of whiskey because her life was falling apart. Her natural hair was pulled back in a sleek bun, her makeup flawless. If she was going down, she'd go down looking like the queen she'd always told herself she was. The elevator ride to the top floor felt like ascending to her own execution. When the doors opened, she found herself in a reception area that screamed money and power. Everything was black marble and chrome, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul. A woman sat behind a desk, beautiful and cold as ice. "Maya Johnson," Maya said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I have an appointment with Mr. Jean." The receptionist's expression didn't change. "He's expecting you." Through those doors. The doors in question were massive, dark wood that probably cost more than her entire apartment. Maya pushed them open and stepped into an office that belonged in a movie. The space was enormous, dominated by a desk that looked carved from a single piece of black stone. Behind it sat Jin Hyuk, and in the morning light streaming through the windows, he looked even more dangerous than he had last night. He wasn't alone. 2 men flanked the room, clearly security, their eyes tracking her every movement. "Miss Johnson," Jin Hyuk said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. "Punctual. I appreciate that." Maya sat, folding her hands in her lap to keep them from shaking. "Let's just get this over with. What do you want from me?" Jin Hyuk leaned back in his chair, studying her with those bottomless dark eyes. "Direct. I appreciate that too. Tell me, Maya, why were you drinking alone in my bar last night? A woman like you, successful, beautiful, should have been celebrating with friends, not destroying priceless whiskey. A woman like me?" Maya's eyebrows rose. "You don't know anything about me. I know your business is struggling. I know you've been in Seoul for 3 years. I know you came here chasing a man, Marcus Chin, who works in finance and has been cheating on you with your sister for the past 2 months. Jin Hyuk's expression didn't change, but his words hit like bullets. I know you found out last night at your own birthday party, and instead of falling apart, you walked out with your head high. That tells me everything I need to know about you. Maya felt her face flush hot with humiliation and anger. You had me investigated? In one night. I investigate everyone who costs me money. Jin Hyuk stood, walking around his desk to perch on the edge of it, closer to her now. Here's your situation, Maya. You owe me $50,000. Your business can't cover it. Your personal savings can't cover it. You could sell everything you own and still come up short. So I'm going to make you an offer. What kind of offer? Maya's throat felt dry. She'd heard stories about offers from men like this. None of them ended well. Marriage. Maya blinked. Of all the things she'd expected him to say, that wasn't one of them. I'm sorry, what? Marry me. Jin Hyuk said it like he was discussing the weather. 1 year. A contract marriage. You play the role of my wife in public, live in my home, attend events with me. In return, your debt is cleared, and I'll pay you an additional $10,000 per month for your time. Maya's mind reeled. This is insane. Why would you possibly want to marry me? You don't even know me. I know enough. Jin Hyuk crossed his arms. My family is traditional. Very traditional. My grandmother has been pressuring me to marry for years. She's threatening to hand control of certain family businesses to my cousin if I don't settle down soon. I need a wife, temporarily, to satisfy her demands and secure my position. You need money and a fresh start. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement. You could marry anyone, Maya protested. Why me? Why some random woman who destroyed your whiskey? For the first time, something like amusement flickered across Jin Hyuk's face. Because you're perfect. You're not from this world, which means you don't want anything from it. You won't get attached, won't develop expectations. You're foreign, which will irritate my grandmother just enough to be entertaining. And most importantly, you stood in my bar last night, clearly terrified, and still lifted your chin and met my eyes. You have spine, Maya Johnson. That's rare. Maya stood, needing to move, to think. She walked to the windows, looking out over Seoul. This was crazy. Absolutely insane. Marry a stranger? A dangerous stranger who probably had bodies buried somewhere? But what were her alternatives? Bankruptcy? Crawling back to the States where everyone would know about Marcus and Tessa? Starting over with nothing? What exactly would this marriage entail? She asked quietly. You'd move into my home. We'd attend family gatherings and business events together. In public, we'd appear as a married couple. In private, you'd have your own space, your own life. I won't touch you, Maya. This is business, nothing more. Maya turned to face him. And after a year? We divorce quietly. You walk away with $120,000, no debt, and you can go anywhere, do anything you want. Or stay in Seoul if you prefer. I'll even provide recommendations for your business. It was too good to be true. Men like Jin Hyuk didn't make offers like this unless there was a catch. What's the real reason? Maya asked. There's something you're not telling me. Jin Hyuk's jaw tightened, the first sign of real emotion she'd seen from him. My grandmother is dying. Cancer. She has maybe 2 years left, probably less. Her dying wish is to see me married, settled, happy. I can't give her happy, but I can give her the illusion of it. That's the truth, Maya. I want to give a dying woman some peace before she goes. And there it was. The humanity beneath the monster. Maya's grandmother had raised her after her parents died in a car accident when she was 8. She understood that kind of love, that desperate need to make someone's last days better. I need time to think, Maya said. You have until 5 p.m. today. Jin Hyuk stood, moving back behind his desk. After that, the offer expires, and we discuss alternative arrangements for your debt. Arrangements I promise you'll like much less. The threat was clear. Maya nodded and turned to leave. At the door, she paused. Why tell me about your grandmother? You could have just made this about business. Jin Hyuk looked up from the papers he'd already turned his attention to. Because I need you to say yes, and I thought the truth might convince you where threats wouldn't. Was I wrong? Maya didn't answer. She walked out, her mind spinning. In the elevator, she pulled out her phone. 7 missed calls from Tessa, 3 from Marcus. She deleted them all without listening. Then she opened her banking app and stared at the numbers that represented her entire life's savings. Not enough. Not nearly enough. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Clock's ticking, Maya. Choose wisely. It was followed by a photo. Jin Hyuk with an elderly woman who had kind eyes and a warm smile, clearly taken at some family gathering. His grandmother. In the photo, Jin Hyuk's expression was softer, almost gentle. A man capable of that expression couldn't be completely heartless, could he? Maya found herself in a coffee shop, Americano untouched in front of her. She made a list in her head. Pros: debt erased, money to start over, escape from the humiliation of Marcus and Tessa. Cons: marrying a stranger, entering a dangerous world, potentially losing herself in the process. But hadn't she already lost herself? The Maya who'd walked into that party last night believing in love and loyalty was gone. Maybe this new Maya, this harder version, could survive a year with a mafia boss. At 4:45 p.m., Maya stood outside the black skyscraper again. She took a deep breath, thought about her grandmother who'd always told her that sometimes the bravest thing you could do is bet on yourself, and walked inside. Jin Hyuk was still at his desk when she entered, as if he'd known she'd come back. Well, I have conditions, Maya said. His eyebrows rose. Bold. I'm listening. First, I want it in writing. A real contract, legally binding, that specifies everything. The money, the timeline, the terms of the divorce. Second, I maintain my business. I'm not giving that up. Third, no one outside your inner circle can know this is fake. I won't be humiliated again. And fourth, if at any point you break the terms of this agreement, I walk away with full payment and no debt. Jin Hyuk smiled, a real smile this time, and it transformed his face. Done. My lawyer will have the contract ready by tomorrow. But I have one condition of my own. What? When we're in public, you sell it. No half measures, no awkward distance. If we're going to convince my grandmother and my associates that this is real, you need to act like you're in love with me. Can you do that? Maya thought about all the times she'd faked smiles at events, pretended everything was fine when clients were demanding, performed confidence when she felt none. I'm an excellent actress. Good. Jin Hyuk extended his hand. Then we have a deal, Mrs. Jin. Maya stared at his hand, at the point of no return. Then she reached out and shook it, his grip firm and warm. 1 year, she said. 1 year, he agreed. What Maya didn't know, what Jin Hyuk didn't tell her, was that in his world, a year was a lifetime. And lifetimes had a way of changing people in ways they never expected. As she left his office, Jin Hyuk watched her go and wondered if he'd just made the smartest decision of his life or a mistake that would destroy them both. If you're screaming at your screen right now about whether Maya should have taken this deal, hit that comment section and let me know. And if you want to see how a fake marriage between a heartbroken event planner and a ruthless mafia boss could possibly go wrong, keep watching. The wedding happened 3 days later in a private ceremony that felt more like a business transaction than a celebration of love. Maya stood in a simple white dress that Jin Hyuk's people had delivered to her apartment. No veil, no flowers, just her and a man she barely knew in front of an officiant who asked no questions. Jin Hyuk wore a black suit that probably cost more than the dress, and when he slipped the ring onto her finger, a platinum band with a diamond so large it felt obscene, his hands were steady. Hers shook. You may kiss the bride, the officiant said, and Maya's heart stopped. They hadn't discussed this part. Jin Hyuk's eyes met hers, asking permission, and she gave the smallest nod. His lips touched hers, soft and brief, barely there at all. But Maya felt it everywhere, a spark that terrified her more than any threat he'd made. Welcome to the family, Mrs. Jin, he murmured against her ear, and Maya realized that whatever she'd signed up for, it was too late to back out now. Moving into Jin Hyuk's penthouse was like entering another world. The place was enormous, all clean lines and expensive art, with views of Seoul that made her old apartment look like a shoebox. A housekeeper named Mrs. Park showed her to her room, a suite larger than her entire previous living space, with a walk-in closet already filled with clothes in her exact size. Someone had been shopping for her, studying her, and the invasion of privacy should have angered her. Instead, it just reminded her how thoroughly she'd sold herself. Mr. Jin's room is at the end of the hall, Mrs. Park said in careful English. He works late most nights. Breakfast is at 7 if you wish to join him, but he understands if you prefer to sleep in. If you need anything at all, just press this button. She indicated an intercom system. Someone will always answer. After Mrs. Park left, Maya explored her new prison, because that's what it felt like despite the luxury. Everything was beautiful and cold, like Jin Hyuk himself. She found herself standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows in the living room, watching the city lights, when she heard footsteps behind her. Can't sleep. Jin Hyuk's voice made her jump. He changed into casual clothes, dark jeans, and a black t-shirt that showed off a body that was clearly well-maintained. He looked younger like this, less intimidating. Almost human. It's my wedding night, Maya said with bitter humor. I'm spending it alone in a stranger's house after marrying said stranger for money. Sleep seems unlikely. Jin Hyuk poured himself a drink from the bar, then raised the bottle in question. Maya nodded, and he poured her one too. Whiskey, of course, though surely not as expensive as the one she'd destroyed. He handed it to her, their fingers brushing, and Maya felt that spark again. For what it's worth, Jin Hyuk said, I know this isn't what you imagined for yourself. Thank you for doing this. You're paying me $120,000, Maya replied. Don't thank me. This is business. Is it? Jin Hyuk's dark eyes studied her over his glass. You could have negotiated for more money. Could have demanded better terms. But you didn't. You agreed to help a dying woman find peace. That's not just business, Maya. Maya looked away, uncomfortable with his perception. When do I meet her? Your grandmother. Tomorrow. She's hosting a family dinner to meet my new wife. Jin Hyuk's expression darkened. I should warn you, my family is complicated. My grandmother is kind, but my uncle and cousin are not. They see you as a threat to their position in the family business. Be careful around them. Noted. Anything else I should know? Jin Hyuk hesitated, and Maya realized it was the first time she'd seen him uncertain. My world is dangerous, Maya. The people I do business with, the situations I deal with, they're not like your corporate events and society parties. If you see something that frightens you, something you don't understand, don't ask questions. Just trust that I'll handle it. You're asking me to be blind and obedient? Maya's eyebrows rose. That's not who I am. I'm asking you to be smart and safe. Jin Hyuk stepped closer, and Maya caught that scent again, expensive and masculine and intoxicating. I meant what I said, Maya. I won't touch you, won't force anything. But I will protect you. That's part of our deal too, even if it wasn't written in the contract. Before Maya could respond, Jin Hyuk's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his entire demeanor changed, hardening into something cold and deadly. I have to go. Don't wait up. He was halfway to the door when he paused. Lock your bedroom door. And if anyone you don't recognize tries to enter this penthouse, hit the panic button by your bed. Security will be here in 30 seconds. Then he was gone, and Maya was left wondering what kind of emergency required a mafia boss at 2 a.m. She didn't sleep that night either, listening for Jin Hyuk's return. He never came. When morning arrived, Maya found a note on the kitchen counter in sharp, precise handwriting, wear something elegant tonight. My grandmother dresses for dinner. And Maya? Smile. She needs to believe we're happy. The boutique Jin Hyuk sent her to treated her like royalty, the staff fawning over her, bringing dress after dress. Maya chose a deep emerald green that made her skin glow and her curves impossible to ignore. If she was going to play this part, she'd play it well. When she returned to the penthouse, Jin Hyuk was in the living room, on the phone, speaking rapid Korean. He looked up when she entered, and something flashed in his eyes, something that looked almost like hunger before he controlled it. He ended the call. You look beautiful. That's the point, isn't it? Maya adjusted the diamond necklace his people had also provided. I'm supposed to be the wife you chose, the woman who captured the uncatchable Jin Hyuk. Is that what they call me? Amusement colored his voice. Among other things. Maya met his eyes in the mirror. Are you ready for this? Introducing your fake wife to your dying grandmother. Jin Hyuk's expression shuddered. No, but we're doing it anyway. He offered his arm. Shall we? The drive to his grandmother's estate took them outside Seoul proper, into the countryside where old money lived behind high walls and higher expectations. The house itself was traditional Korean architecture, beautiful and imposing. As they walked to the entrance, Jin Hyuk leaned close. "Remember, we're in love. You adore me. I adore you. We can't keep our hands off each other." "That's a lot of adoring for a business arrangement," Maya muttered. "Then act better." Jin Hyuk's hand found the small of her back, possessive and warm through the thin fabric of her dress. "Because my uncle just looked out the window and we're on stage now." The door opened before they reached it, revealing a woman in her 70s with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. Jin Hyuk's grandmother. She was tiny, elegant, and the smile she gave them was so full of joy that Maya felt guilt twist in her stomach. "Hyuka." She pulled Jin Hyuk into a hug, speaking rapid Korean. Then she turned to Maya, switching to accented but clear English. "And you must be Maya." "Oh my dear, you're even more beautiful than Hyuk said. Come inside." The warmth in her voice made Maya want to cry. This woman was dying, and they were lying to her. But Jin Hyuk's hand tightened on her back, steadying her, and Maya found herself smiling, playing the part. Inside, the house was filled with people. Family members, all watching them with varying degrees of curiosity and hostility. Jin Hyuk's uncle, a man in his 50s with cold eyes, approached first. "So this is the American." He said it like an insult. "Maya," Jin Hyuk said, his voice dropping into something dangerous. "This is my uncle, Jin Sangwoo. Uncle, my wife." The emphasis on wife was clear. "This is mine. Touch her and die." Maya felt Jin Hyuk's arm wrap around her waist, pulling her closer. She leaned into him, playing her part, feeling his heart beating steady and strong through his suit jacket. A younger man stepped forward, handsome in an obvious way, his smile sharp. "Cousin." "And the beautiful bride." "I'm Jin Minho. We're so surprised by this sudden marriage. Tell me, how did you two meet?" It was a test. Maya could feel everyone watching, waiting. She looked up at Jin Hyuk and, for a moment, forgot they were acting. His eyes were on her, intense and dark, and when he smiled, it was soft, almost tender. "She destroyed something valuable of mine," Jin Hyuk said, never looking away from Maya. "And I realized I couldn't live without her." It should have sounded rehearsed. Instead, it sounded true. Maya's breath caught. "How romantic," Minho said, sarcasm dripping. "And what did she destroy?" "My peace of mind," Jin Hyuk replied smoothly. "From the moment I saw her, I haven't had a moment's rest." Grandmother clapped her hands together, delighted. "Oh, Hyuk, you finally found someone who challenges you. Come, dinner is ready. Maya, you'll sit next to me. I want to know everything." Dinner was an interrogation disguised as conversation. Grandmother asked about how they met, their courtship, their plans. Maya and Jin Hyuk told a story they'd rehearsed, about meeting at an event, a whirlwind romance, love at first sight. But as Maya spoke, watching Jin Hyuk add details, seeing his hand reach for hers across the table, their fingers intertwining naturally, she wondered where the acting stopped and something else began. "And do you love him?" Grandmother asked suddenly, her eyes sharp despite her age. "Truly love him, Maya?" "Because my grandson has a hard life, a dangerous life. He needs someone who will stand beside him through anything." The room went silent. Every eye was on Maya. She could feel Jin Hyuk tense beside her, waiting for her answer. This was the moment. The performance that would make or break everything. Maya turned to Jin Hyuk, and this time, she didn't have to fake the emotion in her voice. Because somewhere between the wedding that wasn't real and the dinner where nothing was true, she'd realized something terrifying. This man, this dangerous, complicated man, had given her something Marcus never had. He'd been honest. Up front. He'd offered her a choice and respected her decision. "I love him," Maya said, and felt Jin Hyuk's hand tighten on hers. "He came into my life when I was broken, and instead of taking advantage, he gave me strength. How could I not love him?" Grandmother's eyes filled with tears. "Then I can die happy knowing my Hyuk has found his home." The weight of those words crushed Maya. Jin Hyuk stood abruptly. "Walk with me, Maya?" It wasn't a question. He led her outside to the garden, away from watching eyes. The moment they were alone, He dropped her hand like it burned. "That was perfect," he said, his voice cold again. My grandmother believed every word. "Good," Maya managed, trying to ignore the disappointment flooding through her. "That's what you're paying me for." But as they stood in the moonlight, careful not to touch, both of them were thinking the same thing. That somewhere in the performance, something real had slipped through. And neither of them knew what to do about it. If you're feeling that tension, that impossible pull between two people who shouldn't want each other, drop a like and tell me in the comments whether you think Maya and Jin Hyuk can keep this fake for a whole year. The next 2 weeks fell into a strange rhythm that felt like playing house with a stranger. Maya would wake up in her enormous bed, eat breakfast alone because Jin Hyuk was always gone before dawn, work on her business from the penthouse, and then in the evenings, they'd attend events together. Charity galas, business dinners, family gatherings. Every time, they'd perform their roles flawlessly. Jin Hyuk's hand on her waist, Maya's fingers on his arm, stolen glances and small smiles that made everyone believe they were desperately in love. But the moment they crossed the threshold of the penthouse, the masks came off. Jin Hyuk would disappear into his office or leave entirely on business he never explained. Maya would retreat to her room, trying to ignore the loneliness that felt worse somehow than when she'd actually been alone. At least before, she'd known what she was. Now she was Jin Hyuk's wife, but not really, living in his home, but not really, playing at intimacy while maintaining careful distance. It was driving her insane. On a Thursday night, Maya couldn't sleep. Again. She wandered into the living room at 3 a.m. and found Jin Hyuk on the couch, his shirt unbuttoned, a glass of whiskey in his hand, staring at nothing. Blood stained his collar. "Oh my God," Maya gasped, rushing forward. "You're hurt." Jin Hyuk looked at her like he'd forgotten she existed. "It's not my blood. Go back to bed, Maya." Like hell. She grabbed the first aid kit she'd noticed in the kitchen. Mrs. Park had shown her where everything was. "Take off your shirt." "Maya, I said it's not my blood." "And I said take off your shirt. There's blood on your face too, and your knuckles are torn up. Whatever happened tonight, you're cleaning up before you pass out on this couch." Her hands were shaking, but her voice was firm. This wasn't part of their deal, wasn't part of the performance, but she couldn't just walk away. Jin Hyuk stared at her for a long moment, then slowly unbuttoned his shirt completely. Maya's breath caught. His torso was a map of violence, old scars crisscrossing his skin, and fresh bruises blooming along his ribs. But what struck her most was how beautiful he was despite it all, or maybe because of it. Every scar told a story of survival. "Satisfied?" Jin Hyuk asked, his voice rough. Maya sat beside him, dampening a cloth. "This is going to sting." She cleaned the blood from his face gently, her fingers trembling as they brushed his skin. Jin Hyuk watched her, his dark eyes unreadable. "What happened tonight?" "Business." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one you're getting." But his voice had softened slightly. "Why are you doing this, Maya? Playing nurse isn't in your contract." Maya moved to his hands, cleaning the torn knuckles with careful precision. "Because despite everything, despite this being fake and temporary and absolutely insane, I can't just ignore you bleeding on our couch." "Our couch," Jin Hyuk repeated, something strange in his voice. "You called it our couch." Maya realized what she'd said and pulled back, but Jin Hyuk caught her wrist, gentle but firm. Don't pull away." His thumb brushed across her pulse point, and Maya knew he could feel how fast her heart was racing. "I need to tell you something. Tonight, there was a situation with a rival group. They wanted to send a message. They mentioned you, Maya. They know about you, about our marriage. And they see you as a way to hurt me." Fear spiked through Maya's chest. "What kind of message?" "The kind that doesn't matter because it's handled. But I need you to understand, this world I'm in, it's not safe. People will try to use you against me. Which means I need to keep you closer. We need to make this more convincing." "More convincing?" "We're already playing the perfect couple." Jin Hyuk's jaw tightened. "In public. But my associates, they talk. They notice things. Like how we arrive together but barely speak in the car. How we stand next to each other but there's always space between us. How we never touch unless we absolutely have to." His hand was still on her wrist, his thumb still moving in slow circles that were making it hard for Maya to think. "We need to be more comfortable with each other. More natural." What are you suggesting? Maya whispered. Spend time with me. Not at events, not performing. Actually, spend time together. Let people see us leaving the same room in the morning. Let my driver see me kiss you goodbye. Let my security team see us being a real couple. Jin Hyuk's eyes searched hers. I know this wasn't part of the original deal, but things have changed. You're in danger now just by being associated with me. The only way to protect you is to make everyone believe that hurting you would destroy me. Would it? The question slipped out before Maya could stop it. Destroy you. Jin Hyuk released her wrist and stood, putting distance between them. Don't ask questions you don't want answered, Maya. Just trust me when I say that for this to work, for you to be safe, we need to blur the lines a little. Can you do that? Maya stood too, her legs unsteady. What does blurring the lines look like? It looks like having breakfast together. Taking phone calls in front of each other. Me coming home for dinner sometimes instead of working until dawn. You being in my office when associates video call. Small things that add up to intimacy. Jin Hyuk ran a hand through his hair, and Maya noticed how exhausted he looked beneath the control. I won't push for anything you're not comfortable with. But we need to at least look like we share a life, not just an address. It made sense. Terrifying, dangerous sense. Because Maya had spent 2 weeks carefully maintaining boundaries, and now Jin Hyuk was asking her to erase them. She thought about the blood on his collar, the way he'd said people wanted to hurt her, the genuine concern in his voice beneath the cold exterior. Okay, she said. We blur the lines. But Jin Hyuk. She stepped closer, lifting her chin to meet his eyes. Don't forget this is still temporary. Don't forget we're still acting. Because I can't afford to forget, and I don't think you can either. Something flashed across Jin Hyuk's face, something that looked like pain. Of course. Acting. That's all this is. He moved toward his office. Get some sleep, Maya. Tomorrow we start selling this better. But as Maya returned to her room, she realized they'd already started. Because the way her heart had raced when Jin Hyuk touched her wrist, the way she'd wanted to smooth the worry from his face, the way she'd called it, our couch, like they were building something real, that wasn't acting. That was the problem. The next morning, Maya woke to find Jin Hyuk in the kitchen making coffee, still there at 7 a.m. for the first time since she'd moved in. He'd showered, changed into a suit, but the bruises on his face were visible, a reminder of last night's violence. Good morning, Mrs. Jean, he said, and there was something different in his voice. Warmer. Coffee? Please. Maya slid onto a bar stool, very aware that she was in pajamas, her natural hair loose around her shoulders, no makeup, completely unguarded. This is new. You're usually gone by now. New routine, remember? Jin Hyuk poured her coffee, adding cream and sugar without asking. He'd been paying attention. Mrs. Park is off today, so I thought I'd cook breakfast. Can you eat eggs? The domesticity of it was surreal. You cook. I'm full of surprises. Jin Hyuk cracked eggs into a pan with practiced ease. I grew up cooking with my grandmother. Before everything got complicated, before I became this, I wanted to be a chef. Maya blinked. It was the first personal thing he'd ever shared. What happened? My father died. Someone needed to take over the family business, and my uncle wasn't capable. So I set aside what I wanted for what was needed. Jin Hyuk plated the eggs, perfectly cooked, and slid them in front of her. Do you ever miss Atlanta? The question surprised her. Sometimes. I miss the food, the music, my grandmother's church. But Seoul's home now, or it was becoming home until everything with Marcus happened. He's an idiot, Jin Hyuk said flatly. I had him investigated too. He's been cheating on expense reports at his firm, sleeping with at least 3 other women besides your sister, and he's mediocre at his job. You deserved better. Maya should have been angry about the investigation, but instead she found herself smiling. Are you defending my honor, Mr. Jean? I'm stating facts. But there was warmth in his eyes. Eat. Then get dressed. We're going out. Where? It's a surprise. Wear something casual. Jeans are fine. An hour later, Maya found herself in Jin Hyuk's car, a sleek black sedan with bulletproof windows, being driven through Seoul by his security team. Jin Hyuk sat close enough that their thighs touched, and he didn't move away. Playing the part, Maya reminded herself. Blurring the lines. They ended up at a traditional market, the kind tourists rarely found, filled with locals shopping for fresh produce and fish. Jin Hyuk took her hand, lacing their fingers together, and led her through the stalls. People recognized him, bowing respectfully, but there was also affection in their faces. This was his neighborhood where he'd grown up. My grandmother sent me here every week as a kid, Jin Hyuk explained, stopping at a fruit stand. He picked up a persimmon, inspecting it with care, then handed it to Maya. She said if I was going to run an empire, I needed to remember where I came from. These people, this place, they're why I do what I do. To protect them. Maya took the persimmon, seeing Jin Hyuk differently. Not just a mafia boss, but a man who protected his neighborhood, who remembered his roots. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Jin Hyuk bought the fruit, plus several other items, chatting with the vendors in rapid Korean. Someone colder. More ruthless. Not someone who shops at markets and makes eggs and talks about wanting to be a chef. Jin Hyuk's expression darkened. I am cold and ruthless, Maya. Don't mistake today for who I really am. The things I do, the choices I make, they're necessary, but they're not good. I'm not good. Everyone thinks they're the villain in their own story, Maya said softly. But I've seen you with your grandmother. I've seen you with these vendors. You're more complicated than you want me to believe. Complicated is just another word for dangerous. Jin Hyuk pulled her closer as a group of men walked past, his arm around her waist, his body between her and potential threat. The gesture was protective, instinctive. When the men were gone, he didn't let go. What we're doing today, it's strategic. People are watching. They need to see us comfortable together. Right. Strategic. But Maya leaned into him anyway, breathing in his scent, letting herself have this moment even if it wasn't real. They spent the morning at the market, then Jin Hyuk took her to a small restaurant tucked away in an alley. The owner, an elderly man, greeted Jin Hyuk like family and insisted on cooking them his special menu. Over bibimbap and banchan, Jin Hyuk told her stories about growing up in Seoul, about his father's death when he was 19, about the weight of responsibility that had crushed his dreams. Do you regret it? Maya asked. Giving up what you wanted? Jin Hyuk was quiet for a long moment. Every day. But regret doesn't change reality. We do what we must with the hand we're dealt. His eyes met hers across the table. Like you, getting on a plane to Korea because you believed in love. Like you, standing in my office and agreeing to this insane arrangement. We're both survivors, Maya. We do what we have to do. Is that what we're doing? Surviving. What else would you call it? But Jin Hyuk's hand found hers on the table, his fingers curling around hers, and Maya wondered if survival was supposed to feel this much like falling. They were walking back to the car when it happened. A man stepped out of the shadows, a knife glinting in his hand, moving toward Maya with deadly intent. But before Maya could even scream, Jin Hyuk was there, moving with a speed that didn't seem human. The knife clattered to the ground. The man crumpled. Jin Hyuk's security team materialized, dragging the attacker away. Jin Hyuk turned to Maya, his hands cupping her face, his eyes wild with something that looked like fear. Are you hurt? Did he touch you? I'm fine, Maya managed, shaking. You stopped him. How did you move so fast? Years of practice. Jin Hyuk pulled her against his chest, his heart hammering as fast as hers. I told you people would try to use you against me. I told you this was dangerous. Who is he? No one that matters anymore. Jin Hyuk's voice had gone cold again, deadly. But his arms around Maya were gentle, protective. We're leaving. Now. In the car, Maya couldn't stop shaking. Jin Hyuk pulled her against his side, his arm around her shoulders, murmuring something in Korean that sounded like comfort. She let herself be held, let herself feel safe even though she knew it was an illusion. Nothing about this life was safe. I should send you away, Jin Hyuk said quietly. Somewhere he can't reach you. But I'm too selfish. I need you here. For the arrangement, Maya said, needing to hear it, needing the boundary. Jin Hyuk's arm tightened around her. Right. For the arrangement. But they both knew he was lying. Just like they both knew that blurring the lines had been a terrible idea, because the lines were already gone. They'd been gone since that first night in the bar, since Maya had lifted her chin and met Jin Hyuk's eyes and refused to be afraid. They'd been falling toward this moment since the beginning, and neither of them knew how to stop. If your heart is racing right now, if you're feeling everything Maya and Jin Hyuk won't admit they're feeling, smash that subscribe button because things are about to get so much more intense. That night, Jin Hyuk didn't leave. He stayed in the penthouse, working from his office, but there was something different. Every hour, he'd emerge, check on Maya, make sure she was okay. She pretended to work on her laptop, responding to client emails, but really she was just hyper-aware of his presence. The attack had shaken something loose between them, knocked down a wall neither had meant to demolish. Around midnight, Maya gave up on pretending to work and went to Jin Hyuk's office. She knocked, then entered without waiting for permission. He looked up from his desk, surrounded by papers and laptop screens, his expression guarded. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Every time I close my eyes, I see that knife." Maya wrapped her arms around herself. "I keep thinking, what if you hadn't been there? What if he'd been faster?" Jin Hyuk stood, moving around the desk. "But I was there. And I'll always be there, Maya. That's a promise, contract or no contract." "Why?" The question burst out of her. "Why do you care? This is fake, remember? A business arrangement. You shouldn't be promising me protection like it means something." "Because it does mean something," Jin Hyuk said, his voice rough. "Because somewhere between signing that contract and watching a man try to hurt you today, it started meaning everything. And I know that's not what we agreed to. I know I'm breaking the rules. But I can't pretend anymore, Maya. I can't stand in the same room as you and not want to close the distance. I can't watch you smile at charity events and not wish those smiles were real, were for me." Maya's breath caught. "Jin Hyuk, we can't. This was supposed to be simple. Nothing about you is simple." He moved closer, but didn't touch her. "You came into my world and turned it upside down. You see past the monster everyone else sees. You cook breakfast in my kitchen like you belong there. You hold my grandmother's hand and make her laugh. You cleaned blood off my face without flinching. How am I supposed to keep pretending that's nothing?" "Because in 10 months I'm gone," Maya whispered. "Because this was never meant to be real. Because you're you and I'm me and we're from completely different worlds." "Are we?" Jin Hyuk's hand came up, hovering near her face, but not quite touching. "You survived betrayal and came out stronger. You negotiated with a mafia boss instead of falling apart. You stood in front of my family and lied so beautifully my grandmother cried happy tears. You're tougher than half my associates, Maya. You belong in this world more than you think." "I don't want to belong in this world," Maya said, but her conviction was wavering. "I want normal. Safe. Boring. Liar." Jin Hyuk's thumb brushed her cheek, the barest touch that sent electricity through her. "You left normal and safe back in Atlanta. You chose adventure when you got on that plane to Seoul. You chose danger when you signed our contract. And whether you admit it or not, you chose me when you agreed to blur those lines." Maya closed her eyes, feeling herself falling, drowning. "This is a mistake." "Probably." Jin Hyuk's forehead rested against hers, his breath warm on her lips. "But I'm willing to make it if you are." Maya's phone buzzed, shattering the moment. She pulled back, checking it automatically. A message from an unknown number with a photo attached. Her blood turned to ice. It was a picture of her at the market today, Jin Hyuk's arm around her waist, his lips near her ear as he spoke. The message read, "Beautiful couple. It would be a shame if something happened to Mrs. Jin. Tell your husband the Huang family sends their regards." Jin Hyuk read it over her shoulder, and Maya felt him transform. The man who'd been confessing feelings disappeared, replaced by something cold and lethal. He pulled out his own phone, making a call in rapid Korean, his voice like steel. When he hung up, his eyes were black with rage. "Pack a bag," he said. "We're leaving." "What?" "Where?" "Somewhere safe. Somewhere they can't find you." Jin Hyuk was already moving, grabbing his own phone and laptop. "The Huang family, they're rivals. This message means they're escalating. They won't stop at threats." "I'm not running," Maya said, surprising herself. "I'm not hiding while you handle this. That's not what wives do, fake or otherwise." Jin Hyuk spun to face her. "This isn't a game, Maya. These people kill for sport. They torture for information. If they get their hands on you, then you make sure they don't." Maya lifted her chin, channeling every ounce of strength she had. "You said I belong in this world? Prove it. Let me stand beside you instead of hiding me away like I'm breakable. Something like pride flickered in Jin Hyuk's eyes. You're insane. I married a mafia boss after knowing him for 3 days. We established insane a while ago. Maya grabbed his hand. What's the plan? Jin Hyuk stared at their joined hands, then looked up at her with an expression so intense it stole her breath. The plan is I introduce you to my world properly. No more half-truths, no more protection from reality. If you want to stand beside me, you need to understand exactly what that means. Starting with a meeting tomorrow with my inner circle. Your inner circle? The people who actually do the violent, dangerous things. The very same. They need to see you're not just a pretty face I married for show. They need to respect you, which means you need to earn it. Jin Hyuk pulled her closer. Are you sure about this, Maya? Once you step fully into this world, there's no going back to normal. Even after our year is up, you'll be marked as someone who is mine. That follows you forever. Maya thought about Marcus and Tessa, about the life she'd left behind, about the person she'd been just weeks ago. That Maya was gone, burned away by betrayal and rebuilt by a man who saw her strength instead of her vulnerability. This new Maya, this harder version, maybe she could survive in the darkness. I'm sure, she said. Jin Hyuk's kiss was inevitable, crashing over her like a wave. His hands cupped her face, his lips claiming hers with a hunger that had been building since that first night in the bar. Maya kissed him back, pouring weeks of tension and want and fear into it, her fingers tangling in his hair. This wasn't gentle or sweet. This was desperation and need and two people who'd tried so hard not to feel anything finally giving in. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Jin Hyuk rested his forehead against hers. This complicates everything. I know. We still have 10 months on the contract. I know. My grandmother's going to think she was right about us. She was right about us, Maya said softly. We were just too stubborn to see it. Jin Hyuk laughed, the sound rusty like he didn't do it often. What am I going to do with you? Keep me alive for the next 10 months? Then we'll figure out the rest. Deal. Jin Hyuk kissed her again, softer this time, a promise instead of a claim. But Maya? When I introduce you tomorrow, when you meet the people I work with, they're going to test you. They're going to push to see if you break. And I need you to not break. Can you do that? Maya thought about standing in front of Marcus and Tessa, about negotiating with Jin Hyuk in his office, about cleaning blood off his face without flinching. I've been breaking and rebuilding my whole life. One more test won't kill me. That's my girl, Jin Hyuk murmured, and Maya realized she liked the sound of that, liked belonging to him in a way that had nothing to do with contracts. The next afternoon, Maya dressed in all black at Jin Hyuk's instruction. Pants, silk blouse, heels that could be weapons if needed. She pulled her hair back severely, applied makeup that made her look fierce instead of beautiful. When she emerged, Jin Hyuk's eyes darkened with approval and something else, something possessive. Perfect, he said. You look like you could run an empire. That's the idea, isn't it? Maya checked her reflection one more time. Where are we meeting them? A club I own in Gangnam. Private room. Just my top 5 associates and us. Jin Hyuk handed her a glass of whiskey. Drink this. Dutch courage. I don't need courage. I need information. Tell me about them. So Jin Hyuk did, describing each man, their roles, their personalities, their weaknesses. Dae-young, his right hand, loyal but brutal. Min-suk, the financial genius with a gambling problem. Taeyong, the negotiator who could talk anyone into anything. Jae-hoon, the tech expert who looked 15 but was 30 and terrifying. And Sung-ho, the enforcer who'd killed more men than Jin Hyuk wanted to count. They're going to think I'm a liability, Maya said, processing. A weakness they can exploit. Yes, which is why you're going to prove them wrong. Jin Hyuk's hand found hers. I believe in you, Maya. More than I've believed in anyone in a long time. The club was exclusive, the kind of place where Korea's wealthy and powerful came to sin in private. Jin Hyuk led her through the main floor to a back room guarded by 2 men who looked like they could bench press cars. Inside, 5 men sat around a table, all of them turning to watch as she and Jin Hyuk entered. Gentlemen, Jin Hyuk said in English, his hand on Maya's back. My wife, Maya. The silence was deafening. Maya felt their eyes on her, assessing, judging, finding her wanting. She'd expected this, but the reality was more intimidating than she'd imagined. These men were predators, and she was prey walking into their den. So this is the American, Dae-jung said finally, his English accented but clear. The event planner who destroyed Hyung-nim's whiskey and somehow convinced him to marry her. Impressive. Or suspicious, Min-suk added. How do we know she's not a plant? CIA, NSA, some American agency trying to infiltrate us. Jin Hyuk's expression went cold. Because I had her investigated 6 ways from Sunday. Because she's proven herself. And because I trust her. You trust her because you're sleeping with her, Sung-ho said bluntly. That's not the same as her being trustworthy. Maya had had enough. She stepped forward, away from Jin Hyuk's protective hand, and faced the 5 men with her head high. You're right to be suspicious. I would be too if some random woman suddenly married my boss. So let me make this simple. I'm not CIA or any other agency. I'm a woman who got betrayed, made a deal, and ended up here. Whether you believe that or not doesn't really matter. What matters is that I'm Jin Hyuk's wife now, which means I'm part of this whether you like it or not. So you can either treat me like an enemy and waste everyone's time, or you can accept that I'm here and figure out how to work with it. The men exchanged glances. Then, unexpectedly, Dae-jung laughed. She's got spine. I like her. She speaks well, Tae-young admitted. Direct. Confident. Not bad. Can she handle real pressure though? Jae-hoon asked, his young face serious. Words are easy. Action is harder. Test me, Maya said before Jin Hyuk could intervene. Whatever you think I need to prove, test me. I'm not afraid. Sung-ho stood, massive and intimidating, and pulled out a gun. He placed it on the table in front of Maya. Pick it up. Maya's heart raced, but she kept her face blank. She picked up the gun, feeling its weight, heavier than she'd expected. She'd never held one before, never wanted to. But she held it now, steady despite her fear. It's loaded, Sung-ho said. Safety's on. You know how to use it? No, Maya admitted. But I can learn. Spoken like someone who'll survive. Sung-ho took the gun back. You're not useless. That's more than I expected. Jin Hyuk's hand found Maya's shoulder, proud and possessive. Any other tests, or can we discuss actual business? They discussed business and Maya listened, learning the scope of Jin Hyuk's empire. Legitimate businesses mixed with less legitimate ones, protection rackets, information brokering, strategic alliances. It was complex, dangerous, and somehow fascinating. When they mentioned the Hwang family threat, Maya spoke up. They sent me a message. Threatened me specifically. That means they think I'm your weakness. You're his weakness, Min-suk said flatly. Then we use that, Maya replied. Let them think I'm vulnerable, distracted. Set a trap using me as bait. The room went silent again. Jin Hyuk's hand tightened on her shoulder. Absolutely not. Why not? It's smart strategy. Because I won't risk you like that. But you'll risk yourself? Risk your men? Why am I different? Maya turned to face him, ignoring everyone else. Because I'm a woman? Because I'm your wife? Or because somewhere in all this, I actually started to matter to you? Jin Hyuk's jaw clenched. The other men watched with obvious interest, seeing their boss in unfamiliar territory. Finally, Jin Hyuk spoke. All of the above. And I don't apologize for that. I'm not asking you to apologize. I'm asking you to trust me the way you're asking them to trust me. Maya gestured to the associates. Let me help. Really help, not just stand around looking pretty. Dae-jung cleared his throat. Hyung-nim, she's not wrong. If the Hwang family thinks she's vulnerable, we could use that. With proper security, proper planning. No, Jin Hyuk said firmly. We find another way. But Maya saw the consideration in his eyes, the war between his protective instincts and strategic mind. She'd planted a seed. Eventually, he'd come around. Because one thing she'd learned about Jin Hyuk, he always made the smart play, even when it cost him emotionally. As the meeting ended and they left the club, Jin Hyuk was quiet, his hand in hers, but his mind clearly elsewhere. In the car, he finally spoke. You can't do things like that. Volunteer yourself as bait. I know you're trying to prove yourself, but I'm not trying to prove anything, Maya interrupted. I'm trying to survive. And in your world, survival means being useful, not decorative. Those men in there? They respect me a little now. But they'll never fully trust me unless I show I'm willing to take the same risks they do. Jin Hyuk pulled her against him, his face buried in her hair. You're going to give me a heart attack. Better than letting the Huang family give you a bullet. Maya tilted her head to look at him. We're in this together now, remember? Partners, not just husband and wife. Partners, Jin Hyuk repeated, tasting the word. I've never had a partner before. People who work for me, people I control, but never an equal. Well, get used to it. Maya kissed him, soft and brief. Because I'm not going anywhere. Not after 10 months, not after a year. You're stuck with me, Jin Hyuk. For real this time. His smile was brilliant, transforming his face. Best mistake I ever made, destroying your life so I could rebuild it next to mine. You didn't destroy my life. Marcus and Tessa did. You just gave me a new one. Maya settled against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. A better one, even if it comes with death threats. They rode in comfortable silence, but Maya's mind was already working. The Huang family threat was real, and whether Jin Hyuk liked it or not, she was going to help neutralize it. Because that's what partners did. They protected each other, even from themselves. Are you as invested in Maya and Jin Hyuk's relationship as I am? Hit that like button if you want to see Maya prove she's more than just a mafia wife, and comment whether you think Jin Hyuk will let her be the bait. 3 days later, Maya was working from home when Mrs. Park knocked on her office door, her expression worried. Mrs. Jean, there's a woman here to see you. She says she's your sister. Maya's blood ran cold. Tessa. Here, in Seoul, in her home. The audacity was staggering. Send her in. Tessa walked into the office looking exactly like Maya remembered, beautiful and apologetic, her eyes already filling with tears. Maya, thank God. I've been trying to reach you for weeks. Please, just let me explain. Explain what? Maya kept her voice level, refusing to give Tessa the satisfaction of seeing her rattled. Explain how you slept with my boyfriend? How you did it in my apartment, at my birthday party, in front of all my friends. Which part needs explaining, Tessa? It wasn't like that. Marcus pursued me. He said you two were having problems, that you were growing apart. I didn't mean for it to happen, Maya. I love you. You're my sister. Maya laughed, bitter and sharp. Sisters don't betray each other like you did. Sisters don't sleep with each other's boyfriends, and then have the nerve to show up asking for forgiveness. Tessa's tears fell freely now. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But Marcus and we're over. He's been cheating on me too. I flew all the way to Seoul to apologize, to make things right. And then I find out you married some Korean businessman? Maya, you don't even know him. This isn't you. You don't do impulsive things. Maybe the old Maya didn't, Maya said coldly. But the old Maya also trusted people who didn't deserve it. The old Maya let herself be walked all over. She's gone, Tessa. Jin Hyuk helped me see that I deserve better than people who use me. Jin Hyuk? Is that his name? Tessa wiped her eyes. Maya, I looked him up. There are rumors about him, scary rumors. People say he's involved in organized crime, that he's dangerous. You can't be with someone like that. Come home with me. We'll fix this together. Before Maya could respond, Jin Hyuk's voice came from the doorway. Mrs. Jean, is there a problem here? He stood in the entrance, still in his suit from whatever meeting he'd attended, his eyes cold as they assessed Tessa. Maya felt a rush of relief at his presence, which should have surprised her but didn't. Somewhere along the way, Jin Hyuk had become her safe place. No problem, Maya said. My sister was just leaving. Sister? Jin Hyuk's expression darkened as he put the pieces together. The one who slept with your boyfriend? Tessa's eyes widened as she took in Jin Hyuk, his expensive suit, his commanding presence, the way he looked at Maya like she was something precious. You're Jin Hyuk? You're not at all what I expected. And you're exactly what I expected, Jin Hyuk replied, moving to stand behind Maya, his hand on her shoulder. Someone who takes what doesn't belong to her and then plays victim when called out. Maya doesn't owe you forgiveness, explanation, or her time. So I'll ask you once, politely, to leave my home. Your home? Maya, is this really what you want? To be with some gangster who probably married you for a green card or money or... Enough. Maya stood, Jin Hyuk's hand sliding down to hold hers. I married Jin Hyuk because he saw me when I was broken and offered me something you and Marcus never could. Honesty. Respect. A partnership built on truth instead of lies. Whatever rumors you heard about him, They're probably true. But he's never pretended to be something he's not. Unlike you and Marcus, who smiled to my face while destroying me behind my back. Tessa's face crumpled. I made a mistake. One mistake. You're going to throw away our entire relationship over one mistake. It wasn't one mistake, Maya said quietly. It was 1,000 little betrayals that led to that moment. Every time you flirted with Marcus when you thought I wasn't looking. Every time you borrowed my clothes without asking. Every time you made me feel like I should be grateful you even acknowledged me. I was your safety net, Tessa. Someone you could use and discard. But I'm not that person anymore. Jin Hyuk's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression changing to something dangerous. Maya, we need to leave. Now. What's wrong? I'll explain in the car. Mrs. Park will show your sister out. Jin Hyuk was already pulling Maya toward the door, his body tense with urgency. Maya, please, Tessa called after them. Don't do this. Don't shut me out. But Maya didn't look back. She let Jin Hyuk lead her to the elevator, down to the parking garage where his car waited with the engine running. His security team was there, more of them than usual, all armed. Something was very wrong. Jin Hyuk, what's happening? Get in the car. He practically pushed her inside, sliding in next to her. The moment the door closed, they were moving fast. The Huang family made their move. They hit one of my warehouses, killed 3 of my men, and left a message. They're coming for you next, Maya. They know your schedule, know you're home alone during the day, know Mrs. Park's routine. If Tessa hadn't shown up when she did, if I hadn't come home early. His voice broke off and Maya saw real fear in his eyes. She reached for his hand. But you did come home early. I'm fine. We're fine. We're not fine. They're escalating faster than I expected. Which means we need to move up our timeline. Jin Hyuk pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. I'm taking you to my grandmother's estate. It's the most secure location I have. You'll stay there until this is handled. No. Maya grabbed his phone. I told you, I'm not hiding. We use me as bait like I suggested. End this now instead of dragging it out. Are you insane? They just killed 3 armed men. What do you think they'll do to you? Nothing, because you'll have a plan. Because your team will be ready. Because we'll control the situation instead of reacting to it. Maya held his gaze, refusing to back down. You know I'm right. Strategically, this is the smart play. Jin Hyuk's jaw clenched. I can't risk you like that. You already are risking me by keeping me in Seoul. At least this way, we're proactive. Maya softened her voice. Trust me, Jin Hyuk. Trust that I can handle this. Trust that we can handle this together. The war on Jin Hyuk's face was visible. Finally, he nodded once, sharp. We do it my way. Every detail, every step, you follow my lead exactly. Agreed. Agreed. Jin Hyuk made a call, switching to Korean, his voice rapid and commanding. Maya caught words here and there, her Korean improving from living with him. Warehouse. Tomorrow night. Trap. Protection. When he hung up, he looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Tomorrow night, you're going to your office to meet a potential client. Except the client is fake, set up by us. The Huang family will intercept you on the way, thinking you're vulnerable. My team will be waiting. We grab their people, I negotiate directly with their boss, this ends. Jin Hyuk's hand cupped her face. But if anything goes wrong, if there's even a hint of danger I didn't anticipate, you run. You don't try to be brave, don't try to help. You just run and let my team handle it. Promise me. I promise. Maya leaned into his touch. Nothing's going to go wrong. You're too smart for that. I've been wrong before. I can't be wrong about this. About you. Jin Hyuk kissed her, desperate and claiming. If something happens to you because of me, because of my world, I'll never forgive myself. Then make sure nothing happens. Maya kissed him back, trying to pour confidence and trust into it. We've got this. They spent the rest of the drive in tense silence, Jin Hyuk making calls, coordinating his team, preparing for tomorrow. When they arrived at the penthouse, he pulled her straight to his office, spreading out building layouts and security plans. For hours, they went over every detail. Where Maya would be, where his men would be positioned, what signals to use, what could go wrong, and how to handle it. By midnight, Maya's head was spinning with information, but she felt oddly calm. This was happening. Tomorrow, they'd end the threat. Get some rest, Jin Hyuk said finally, rubbing his eyes. Tomorrow's going to be intense. Will you sleep? Maya asked, knowing the answer. Eventually. He pulled her close, breathing her in. I keep running scenarios, trying to find the weakness in the plan. The variable I didn't account for. The only variable is human error. And your team doesn't make errors. Maya took his hand. Come to bed. Actual bed with me, not your office couch. Even for just a few hours. Jin Hyuk hesitated, then nodded. They walked to his room, not hers for the first time. His space was masculine and minimalist, all dark colors and clean lines. Maya had never been inside before. It felt intimate, crossing this threshold. They lay down together, still fully clothed, Maya's back to Jin Hyuk's chest, his arm around her waist. After tomorrow, he said quietly, after this is handled, we need to talk about what we are. What this has become. We're husband and wife, Maya said. We're more than that now. Jin Hyuk's lips brushed her shoulder. You know we are. The contract, the arrangement, that's not what this is anymore. I know. Maya laced her fingers with his. But let's survive tomorrow first. Then we'll figure out the rest. Deal. Jin Hyuk held her tighter. Maya? Thank you for being brave enough to do this. For trusting me with your life. Thank you for giving me a life worth risking, Maya whispered back. They fell asleep like that, tangled together, and Maya dreamed of a future beyond contracts and danger, where Jin Hyuk's arms around her meant forever instead of temporary. When she woke a few hours later, Jin Hyuk was gone, but there was a note on the pillow in his sharp handwriting. Stay safe today. Tonight, we end this. Then we start something new. Maya held the note to her chest, hope and fear warring inside her. Tonight would change everything. Either they'd emerge stronger, truly partners in every sense, or everything would fall apart. There was no middle ground, not in Jin Hyuk's world. It was all or nothing, life or death, love or loss. She chose to believe in all, in life, in love. Because the alternative was unthinkable. The day crawled by with painful slowness. Maya went through the motions of normal life, responding to emails, taking client calls, but her mind was on tonight. On the plan. On Jin Hyuk and his team preparing. At 4 p.m., she dressed in the outfit Jin Hyuk had specified, professional but not restrictive, shoes she could run in if needed. She wore the diamond necklace he'd given her on their wedding day, a tracking device hidden in the clasp. Insurance, he'd called it. Protection disguised as jewelry. At 5 p.m., the car arrived. Not Jin Hyuk's regular driver, but one of his security team, a man named Dongwoo who'd been briefed on everything. Ready, Mrs. Jin? As I'll ever be. Maya slid into the back seat, her phone clutched in her hand. Jin Hyuk had texted her the address of the fake meeting, a building in Gangnam that looked legitimate but was owned by one of his shell companies. How long until we know if they take the bait? Not long. Boss has eyes everywhere. The moment they make a move, we'll know. Dongwoo's eyes met hers in the rearview mirror. You're very brave, Mrs. Jin. Not many people would do what you're doing. I'm not brave. I'm terrified. Maya watched Seoul slide past the window. But sometimes being terrified and doing it anyway is all the bravery you need. They were 10 minutes from the destination when it happened. A van pulled alongside them, too close, aggressive. Dongwoo cursed, swerving, but another vehicle boxed them in from behind. This was it. The Huang family making their move. Hold on, Dongwoo shouted, trying to maneuver free. But there were too many of them, too coordinated. The van slammed into their side, hard. The car spun. Maya's head cracked against the window. Everything went dizzy, sounds muffled. She heard gunshots, close and terrifying. Dongwoo was shouting into his radio, calling for backup. Then her door was yanked open, hands grabbing her, pulling her from the safety of the car. Got her, someone said in Korean. Let's move. Maya tried to fight, tried to scream, but something pressed against her face, a cloth with a sickeningly sweet smell. Chloroform, her mind supplied uselessly. Her vision blurred. The last thing she saw before darkness claimed her was Dongwoo on the ground, bleeding but alive, his eyes locked on hers with an apology she didn't want. Then nothing. When Maya woke, everything hurt. Her head throbbed, her wrists burned where zip ties cut into her skin, and her mouth tasted like chemicals. She was in a warehouse, empty except for a chair she was tied to and 3 men watching her with expressions ranging from boredom to hostility. None of them were Jin Hyuk. The plan had gone wrong. Very wrong. She's awake, one of the men said in Korean. Call the boss. Fear flooded through Maya, but she forced it down. Jin Hyuk would come. His team would find her. The necklace was still around her throat. She could feel its weight. They'd track her. She just needed to stay alive until they did. A door opened, and a man walked in who radiated authority. Late 50s, expensive suit, cold eyes. The Hwang family boss. Mrs. Jean, he said in perfect English. Welcome. I'm Hwang Ji-hun. And you and I are going to have a very interesting conversation about your husband. Maya lifted her chin, channeling every ounce of strength she had. He's going to kill you for this. Hwang Ji-hun smiled. I'm counting on him trying. If you're on the edge of your seat right now, wondering how Jin Hyuk is going to save Maya and whether she'll survive this, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment with your predictions. Jin Hyuk knew something was wrong the moment Dongwoo's frantic voice came through his earpiece. They got her. I'm sorry, boss. They got her. I'm hit but alive. Mrs. Jean, they took her. The world stopped. Everything Jin Hyuk had built, every wall he'd constructed, every defense mechanism he'd perfected, it all crumbled in that single moment. Maya. They had Maya. The woman who'd walked into his life and turned it upside down, who'd made him feel things he'd thought died with his father, who'd become more essential than breathing. And he'd let her walk into danger because she'd asked him to trust her. Track the necklace, Jin Hyuk said, his voice deadly calm even as rage burned through his veins. Get Dongwoo medical attention. Mobilize everyone. I want to know where they took her within 5 minutes or people start dying. Dae-young was already at the computer, fingers flying across the keyboard. Got her. Warehouse in Incheon, near the docks. It's Hwang territory, Hyungnim. They're not hiding. They want you to come. Then we'll give them what they want. Jin Hyuk checked his gun, his hands steady through pure force of will. Inside, he was screaming. How many men can we mobilize in the next 20 minutes? 30, maybe 40 if we pull everyone from other operations. Do it. Everyone. I don't care what we leave unprotected. Nothing matters except getting Maya back. Jin Hyuk's jaw clenched. And someone call my uncle. Tell him if he ever wanted to prove his loyalty to this family, now's the time. The drive to Incheon was the longest 30 minutes of Jin Hyuk's life. He kept seeing Maya's face, her smile, the way she looked at him this morning with trust and something that might have been love. He'd promised to protect her. Promised she'd be safe. And he'd failed. If they hurt her, if they touched even a hair on her head, Jin Hyuk would burn the Hwang family to the ground and salt the earth where they'd stood. Boss, Min-suk said from the front seat, we should strategize. They'll expect you to come in hot, emotional. We need to be smart about this. I know what they expect, Jin Hyuk said coldly. They expect me to negotiate, to offer them territory or money in exchange for Maya. They think she's a weakness they can exploit. Isn't she? Taeyong asked carefully. Jin Hyuk's eyes were black with rage when he looked at his associate. She's not a weakness. She's the reason I'll show no mercy. There's a difference. Meanwhile, in the warehouse, Maya was learning exactly how ruthless the criminal underworld could be. Hwang Ji-hun circled her like a predator, asking questions about Jin Hyuk's operations, his associates, his weaknesses. Maya stayed silent, refusing to give him anything, even as his men grew more threatening. You're very loyal for a marriage that's only a few weeks old, Hwang observed. Tell me, Mrs. Jean, do you know what your husband really does? The people he's killed? The lives he's destroyed. I know exactly who he is, Maya said, her voice steady despite her fear. And I know he's 10 times the man you'll ever be. Hwang's hand cracked across her face, snapping her head to the side. Pain exploded through her cheek, blood filling her mouth. But Maya didn't cry out. Didn't give him the satisfaction. Brave, Hwang said. Stupid, but brave. Jin Hyuk must really care about you to send you out as bait. Or maybe he doesn't care at all. Maybe you're just another pawn in his game. Doubt tried to creep in, but Maya pushed it away. She'd seen Jin Hyuk's face when he talked about losing her. Felt his arms around her as they slept. Heard the fear in his voice when he made her promise to run if things went wrong. He cared. She knew he cared. He's coming for me, Maya said with absolute certainty. And when he does, you're going to regret ever hearing my name. Huang laughed. Oh, I'm counting on him coming. That's the point. You see, Mrs. Jean, this was never about you. You're just the bait to draw him out. Jean Hyuk has been too careful, too protected. But for you, he'll walk into any trap. Love makes men foolish. Then you've already lost, Maya said, understanding dawning. Because Jean Hyuk's not just any man. He doesn't make foolish mistakes, even for love. Whatever you think is going to happen, you're wrong. Huang's expression darkened. He pulled out his phone, made a call, spoke rapid Korean. When he hung up, he smiled at Maya. We'll see. In about 10 minutes, your husband will arrive with his army. And we'll be ready for them. This warehouse is wired to explode. The moment Jean Hyuk steps inside, boom. You, him, everyone. The Jean family empire crumbles, and my family rises from the ashes. Terror gripped Maya's heart. Jean Hyuk was walking into a trap worse than either of them had imagined. She had to warn him, had to do something. But she was tied to a chair, watched by armed men, with no way to reach him. Unless... the necklace. The tracking device. If it was sophisticated enough to transmit location, maybe it could transmit sound. It was a long shot, but it was all she had. You're going to kill me anyway, Maya said,
You're dead wrong.
making her voice loud and clear. So let me ask, where are the explosives? Hidden in the walls? The floor? I want to know how I'm going to die. Huang looked at her strangely, but Maya kept talking, describing the warehouse layout in as much detail as she could, mentioning the explosives, the trap. If anyone was listening through the necklace, if Jean Hyuk's tech team was monitoring, maybe they'd hear. Maybe they'd understand. Shut up, one of Huang's men said, but Maya kept going. And what about the exits? I see 2 doors, but there must be more for a warehouse this size. Are those wired too? Is there any way out once this place blows? Huang grabbed her face, squeezing painfully. I said shut up. Or what? You'll kill me? You're already planning to. Maya spat blood at his feet. At least let me die knowing the details. Outside the warehouse, Jean Hyuk listened to Maya's voice through his earpiece, his heart pounding. She was smart, so incredibly smart. She'd figured out the necklace could transmit audio and was feeding them intelligence disguised as fearful questions. Explosives in the walls and floor. 2 visible exits, possibly more. All wired to blow. She's telling us it's a trap, Jae-hoon said, monitoring the audio feed. The whole warehouse is rigged. Can you disarm it remotely? Jean Hyuk asked. Not without knowing the system they're using. I need physical access. Jae-hoon's fingers flew across his tablet. But if I can get inside, I can probably disable it in 5 minutes. You have 3, Jean Hyuk said. Dae-young, take 15 men around back. Find those other exits Maya mentioned. Min-suk, Tae-young, you're with me. We go in the front, loud and obvious. Draw their attention while Jae-hoon does his thing. That's suicide, Tae-young protested. If Jae-hoon can't disable it in time, then we die getting Maya out. Jean Hyuk checked his weapon one last time. I'm not leaving her in there. I don't care what it costs. Hyung-nim, Dae-young said quietly, she wouldn't want you to die for her. She doesn't get a choice. Jean Hyuk's expression was carved from stone. Neither do I. Not anymore. Now move. The team dispersed, each group taking their positions. Jean Hyuk stood at the warehouse entrance with Min-suk and Tae-young flanking him, his heart hammering against his ribs. Inside was Maya, the woman who'd become his entire world in a few short weeks. Inside was also certain death if Jae-hoon failed. But Jean Hyuk had meant what he said. He'd rather die trying to save her than live knowing he'd let her die alone. He kicked open the door. The warehouse erupted into chaos. Huang's men opened fire immediately, and Jean Hyuk's team returned it. Bullets pinged off metal, shattered concrete, filled the air with the smell of gunpowder and fear. Jean Hyuk moved through it like he was born in violence, taking down men with precise shots, always advancing toward where Maya sat tied to that chair. Their eyes met across the warehouse, and Jean Hyuk saw blood on her face, bruises forming, terror in her eyes. But also relief. She'd known he'd come. Never doubted it. Jean Hyuk. Huang shouted over the gunfire. One more step, and I detonate this place right now. Everyone dies. Jin Hyuk stopped, his gun trained on Hwang. Let her go. This is between you and me. But she's the reason you're here, Hwang said, pulling out a detonator, his thumb hovering over the button. She's the reason you stopped thinking clearly. Tell me, was she worth destroying your empire? She's worth everything, Jin Hyuk said without hesitation. Including my life. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to let her go. I'll stay. We negotiate like men instead of animals. You think I'm stupid? Hwang laughed. The moment she's free, your men attack. Then we're at an impasse. Jin Hyuk's eyes never left Maya. He saw Jae-hoon sneaking along the wall behind Hwang's men, saw him accessing a panel. 3 minutes. Jin Hyuk just needed to stall for 3 more minutes. Let me make you a different offer. You want my territory? Take it. You want my businesses? They're yours. Just let Maya walk out of here unharmed. Maya's eyes widened. Jin Hyuk, no. Don't you dare. Quiet, Hwang snapped, but he was listening, interested. You'd give up everything? Your entire empire. For her? Without hesitation. Jin Hyuk lowered his gun slowly, carefully. I mean it, Hwang. Name your terms. Anything except her life. The warehouse had gone silent, both sides watching this negotiation. Hwang studied Jin Hyuk, seeing the truth in his eyes. This wasn't a trick or a strategy. Jin Hyuk meant every word. He'd burn his empire to save Maya. You really love her, Hwang said, almost surprised. I didn't think you were capable of loving anything. Neither did I, Jin Hyuk admitted. But she changed that. She changed everything. So what's it going to be? Do we deal? Or do we all die here tonight? Hwang's thumb hovered over the detonator. Behind him, Jae-hoon was working frantically. 2 minutes left. Maybe less. Jin Hyuk prayed to gods he didn't believe in that the kid was as good as he claimed to be. You know what? Hwang said finally. I don't think I want your empire. I think I want you to suffer. I think I want you to watch her die, knowing you failed to protect her. That seems like better revenge. His thumb started to press down. Everything happened at once. Jae-hoon shouted, clear, meaning the explosives were disarmed. Jin Hyuk raised his gun and fired, hitting Hwang's hand, sending the detonator flying. Hwang's men opened fire. Jin Hyuk's team returned it. And in the chaos, Jin Hyuk ran toward Maya, bullets whizzing past him, death breathing down his neck, focused only on getting to her. He reached her, cut through the zip ties with his knife, pulled her into his arms. I've got you. I've got you. You're safe now. The explosives, Maya gasped. Disarmed. Jae-hoon got them. Jin Hyuk held her tighter, feeling her alive and warm and his. Are you hurt? Did they? I'm fine. Bruised but fine. Maya pulled back to look at him. You were really going to give up everything for me? Everything and more. Jin Hyuk cupped her face, his thumbs gentle on her bruised cheek. Don't you understand, Maya? You are everything. The empire, the power, none of it matters without you. Behind them, the gunfire was dying down. Hwang was on the ground, wounded but alive, his men surrendering. Dae-young appeared, slightly bloody but grinning. All clear, Hyungnim. Hwang's finished. Jin Hyuk didn't look away from Maya. Take care of it. Make sure he understands what happens when someone threatens my wife. With pleasure. Dae-young dragged Hwang away, leaving Jin Hyuk and Maya alone in the aftermath. I was so scared, Maya whispered, finally letting herself break now that it was over. I thought I'd never see you again. Thought I'd die in here and you'd blame yourself and... Jin Hyuk kissed her, cutting off her words, pouring every ounce of fear and relief and love into it. When they broke apart, both were crying, neither caring who saw. You're not allowed to scare me like that ever again, Jin Hyuk said against her hair. I aged 10 years tonight. You're the one who walked into a building rigged to explode, Maya countered, laughing through tears. I aged 20. Then we're even. Jin Hyuk helped her stand, wrapping his jacket around her shoulders. Let's go home. Home. The penthouse that had started as a prison and become a sanctuary. Where they'd learned each other, fought their feelings, and finally surrendered to something neither had expected. Maya leaned against Jin Hyuk as they walked to his car, his arm supporting her, and realized that somewhere between signing a contract and surviving a death trap, they'd fallen completely, irrevocably in love. In the car, Jin Hyuk held her close, his hand gentle on her bruises. When we get home, you're seeing a doctor. No arguments. Only if you see one too. You got shot. Maya pointed to the graze on his arm, blood soaking through his shirt. Barely a scratch. Jin Hyuk. Fine. We'll both see the doctor. He kissed her temple. Stubborn woman. Stubborn man, Maya countered, but she was smiling. They arrived at the penthouse to find Mrs. Park waiting, already prepared with medical supplies and a doctor who asked no questions. After they were both cleaned and bandaged, after statements were given to associates and security was tripled, after the adrenaline finally wore off, Jin Hyuk and Maya found themselves alone in his bedroom. I need to say something, Jin Hyuk said, pulling Maya to sit on the bed beside him. And I need you to let me finish before you respond. Maya nodded, her heart racing. This contract, this arrangement we made, it was supposed to be simple. A year of pretending, then we walk away. But I can't pretend anymore, Maya. I can't pretend that what I feel for you is fake or temporary or anything less than consuming. Tonight, when I thought I might lose you, when I offered Huang everything I've built just to save you, I meant it. You've become more important than anything in my world. More important than power or money or revenge or survival. You're the reason I breathe now. Jin Hyuk took her hands, his grip gentle despite the intensity in his eyes. So I'm asking you, Maya Johnson, will you tear up that contract and marry me again? For real this time. Forever this time. Because I love you and I can't imagine my life without you in it. Maya's tears fell freely. You love me. Desperately. Completely. In ways that terrify me and make me believe in things I thought were fairy tales. Jin Hyuk wiped her tears with his thumbs. I know it's fast. I know we're from different worlds. I know my life is dangerous and complicated and not what you signed up for. But I'm asking anyway because I'm selfish and I want you and I need you to know that what we have is real. Jin Hyuk, Maya said, her voice breaking. I fell in love with you somewhere between that first night in your bar and now. Maybe it was when you told me about your grandmother. Maybe it was when you made me eggs and told me about wanting to be a chef. Maybe it was when you walked into an exploding building to save me. I don't know when it happened, but it did. So yes. Yes, I'll tear up the contract. Yes, I'll marry you again. Yes to forever with you, even though you're impossible and dangerous, and you just gave me the worst night of my life. Jin Hyuk laughed, the sound filled with relief and joy. I promise to give you better nights from now on. You better. Maya pulled him down for a kiss, tender and promising. Because you're stuck with me now, Jin Hyuk. For real this time. Best thing that ever happened to me, Jin Hyuk murmured against her lips. You destroying my whiskey and my carefully ordered life. They held each other as soul glittered outside the windows, two people who'd found love in the most unexpected place, built from lies, but becoming the truest thing either had ever known. The contract didn't matter anymore. The arrangement was forgotten. All that remained was them, and that was more than enough. If you've been with Maya and Jin Hyuk from that first destroyed bottle of whiskey to tonight's explosive rescue, make sure you're subscribed. Drop a comment telling me if you think they'll actually get there happily ever after. 6 months later, Maya stood in front of the mirror in Jin Hyuk's grandmother's house, adjusting the hanbok she wore for the traditional ceremony. The first wedding had been quick, transactional, empty. This one was different. This one was real. White and red silk flowed around her, the traditional Korean bridal dress altered to fit her curves perfectly. Her natural hair was styled elegantly, adorned with ornamental pins that had belonged to Jin Hyuk's grandmother. You look beautiful, the elderly woman said from her seat, her voice weaker than it had been months ago, but her eyes still bright. My Hyuk is a lucky man. I'm the lucky one, Maya said softly, kneeling beside her. Thank you for accepting me. For loving me even when you thought our marriage was real the first time. Grandmother smiled, reaching out to touch Maya's cheek with a trembling hand. I knew, child. From the very beginning, I knew it wasn't a love match. Not yet, anyway. Maya's eyes widened. What? But you seem so happy. So convinced. I'm old, not blind, grandmother chuckled. I saw how you two looked at each other, like you were afraid of what you felt. Like you were fighting something inevitable. So I played along, gave you both the space to find your way to each other. And you did, didn't you? We did, Maya whispered, tears threatening her carefully applied makeup. He's everything I never knew I needed. And you saved him, grandmother said firmly. Before you, Hyuk was a ghost. Going through motions, building an empire but never living. You reminded him what it means to be human. What it means to love. That's worth more than all the businesses and power in the world. A knock on the door interrupted them. Mrs. Park entered, smiling. It's time, Mrs. Jean. Maya stood, taking a deep breath. This was it. The real beginning. No contracts, no pretense, just two people choosing each other every single day. She walked through the traditional Korean house, past family members who'd come to celebrate, past Jin Hyuk's associates who'd become her friends, until she reached the ceremony space where Jin Hyuk waited. He took her breath away. Traditional hanbok in black and gold, his hair styled back, his expression soft in a way that was reserved only for her. When their eyes met, Maya saw her entire future reflected back at her. Love, partnership, adventure, home. The ceremony was beautiful, blending Korean traditions with personal touches. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves, promising not just forever but honesty, partnership, and choosing each other even when it was hard. When Jin Hyuk slipped a new ring onto her finger, replacing the one from their contract marriage, Maya felt the weight of it differently. This was real. This was theirs. I love you, Jin Hyuk said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Not because you're convenient or beneficial or strategic. I love you because you walked into my life like a hurricane and reminded me what it means to feel. You're my partner, my equal, my home. I love you, Maya replied, her voice steady despite her tears. You saw me when I was broken and didn't try to fix me. You gave me space to rebuild myself into someone stronger. You're my safe place in a dangerous world, and I choose you every day. When they kissed, the room erupted in applause. But Maya barely heard it, lost in Jin Hyuk, in the certainty that this was where she belonged. The reception was a blend of cultures, Korean dishes alongside Southern American food that Maya had insisted on. Her grandmother's mac and cheese recipe sat beside kimchi and bulgogi. It was chaotic and perfect, just like their relationship. Maya's event planning skills shone through in every detail, and more than one guest commented that Mrs. Jean had outdone herself. Late in the evening, Jin Hyuk pulled Maya away from the party, leading her to the garden where they'd first admitted their feelings months ago. The moon was full, casting silver light over everything. I have something for you, Jin Hyuk said, pulling out an envelope. A wedding gift. Maya opened it, finding documents inside. Legal papers transferring ownership of a building in Gangnam to her name. Jin Hyuk, what is this? Your office building. For your business. You've been working from home or renting space for too long. I want you to have your own place, your own empire to build. Jin Hyuk pulled her close. I never want you to feel like you gave up your dreams for me. Your business matters. Your independence matters. So this is yours, no strings attached. Maya stared at the papers, overwhelmed. The building was worth millions. This is too much. It's not enough, Jin Hyuk countered. You gave up your old life, survived attempts on your life, walked into danger because you believed in us. You deserve a place that's entirely yours. Thank you, Maya whispered, kissing him softly. For seeing me. For believing in me. For being you. Always, Jin Hyuk promised. Now, I believe there's a party celebrating us that we're missing. They returned to the reception hand in hand, and Maya felt the stares, heard the whispers. The American woman who'd tamed the ruthless Jin Hyuk. The event planner who'd become a mafia wife. The unexpected queen of Seoul's underground. She'd gone from heartbroken and betrayed to powerful and loved in less than a year. It seemed impossible, but here she was, living it. Later that night, back at their penthouse, Maya found a message on her phone. From Tessa. She almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity won. I saw photos of your wedding online. You looked happy. Really happy. I'm sorry for everything, Maya. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I'm glad you found someone who deserves you. Marcus and I broke up, if you care. Turns out serial cheaters keep cheating. I'm moving back to Atlanta. I hope Seoul continues to be good to you. Love, Tess. Maya showed Jin Hyuk the message. Should I respond? Do you want to? He wrapped his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. Maya thought about it, about the sister she'd loved and lost, about betrayal and healing and moving forward. Maybe. Not now, but someday. Forgiveness isn't for her, it's for me. And I'm not ready yet. Then don't, Jin Hyuk said simply. You don't owe anyone forgiveness on their timeline. Take whatever time you need. It was one of the things Maya loved most about him. He never pushed, never demanded. He trusted her to know herself, to make her own choices. Even in his world where control was everything, he never tried to control her. The next morning, Maya woke to Jin Hyuk making breakfast again, a Sunday tradition they'd developed. Eggs, toast, fresh fruit, coffee exactly how she liked it. They ate on the balcony overlooking Seoul, the city that had become home. I got a call this morning, Jin Hyuk said casually. From my uncle. He wants to retire, hand over his part of the business operations to me fully. That's good, right? More control for you. It means more responsibility, more risk, more time away from you. Jin Hyuk set down his coffee. I'm thinking of refusing. Maya blinked. What? Why? Because last night, watching you at our wedding, I realized something. The empire, the power, it's not what I want anymore. I want mornings like this. I want to cook you breakfast and plan vacations and grow old watching you build your business into something amazing. I don't want to spend my life looking over my shoulder, wondering when the next threat will come. Jin Hyuk, Maya said carefully, I married you knowing who you are. What you do. I'm not asking you to change. I'm not changing for you. I'm changing for me. For us. Jin Hyuk took her hand. I've been talking to my associates. Dae-young can take over most operations. I'll stay involved in the legitimate businesses, transition the shadier stuff to people I trust. It'll take time, maybe a year or two, but I can step back. Build a different kind of life. Are you sure? This empire, it's been your entire adult life. And you're my entire future, Jin Hyuk said firmly. I don't want to risk losing you because I was too proud or too scared to walk away from a life I never chose in the first place. My father's dead. My grandmother is dying. At some point, I have to ask myself what I'm building this for. And the answer is you, Maya. A life with you where we're not constantly in danger. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. You'd give it all up? Really? I'd give up anything for you. I thought I proved that when I offered Hwang my entire empire. Jin Hyuk smiled. Besides, I still want to open a restaurant someday. Remember? Before everything got complicated. Maybe it's time to revisit old dreams. A restaurant. Maya laughed through her tears. Jin Hyuk, ruthless mafia boss turned chef? Seoul isn't ready. Then we'll make them ready. He pulled her onto his lap, holding her close. What do you think? Can you handle being married to a retired gangster who cooks for a living? I think, Maya said slowly, that sounds like the most perfect thing I've ever heard. But only if I get to plan all your events. We're a package deal now. Always a businesswoman, Jin Hyuk teased, but his eyes were warm. Deal. We'll be the power couple of Seoul's restaurant scene instead of its underworld. They spent the rest of the morning planning, dreaming, building a future that looked nothing like either had imagined a year ago. Jin Hyuk talked about the type of restaurant he wanted, traditional Korean food with modern twists. Maya sketched out event ideas, ways to market it, connections she could leverage. It was exciting, this new chapter they were writing together. 3 months later, Jin Hyuk's grandmother passed away peacefully in her sleep. The funeral was massive, hundreds of people coming to pay respects to the matriarch of the Jin family. Maya stood beside Jin Hyuk through all of it, his anchor, his strength. When he finally broke down, it was in their bedroom, in her arms, letting himself grieve the woman who'd raised him. She told me she was proud of me, Jin Hyuk said through tears. Right before the end. Said I'd finally learned what was truly important. That she could go knowing I'd be happy. She loved you so much, Maya whispered, holding him tighter. And she was right. You're going to be happy, Jin Hyuk. We both are. At the reading of the will, grandmother left Jin Hyuk her house and a letter. He read it alone first, then shared it with Maya. The elegant handwriting was shaky but clear. My dearest Hyuk, you were always meant for more than the life your father's death forced you into. I'm glad you finally found the courage to chase your real dreams. Maya is good for you, good to you. Hold on to her. Build the life you want, not the life you think you need. And know that I'll always be proud of you, my boy. Always. Love, grandmother. Jin Hyuk carefully folded the letter, tucking it into his wallet where he'd carry it always. She knew. About everything. About me wanting to step back, to change directions. And she approved. Of course she did, Maya said gently. She wanted you happy, not powerful. There's a difference. The transition out of the criminal empire was slower than Jin Hyuk wanted but necessary. He couldn't just abandon operations without causing chaos. So he spent months training Dae-young, transferring assets, making sure everyone under his protection stayed protected. Maya watched him work tirelessly, respecting the responsibility he felt toward the people who depended on him. Finally, a year after their real wedding, Jin Hyuk called a meeting with all his associates. As of today, I'm officially retiring from active operations. Dae-young will take over as head of the family business. I'll remain as an advisor, but day-to-day decisions are his. I'm grateful for everyone's loyalty over the years, but it's time for me to step back. The room was silent. Then Dae-young stood, bowing deeply. Thank you, Hyungnim, for everything you've taught me. For trusting me with this responsibility. I won't let you down. One by one, the others stood, bowing, offering respect and gratitude. Jin Hyuk had led them well, protected them, built an empire that provided for hundreds of families. They understood why he was stepping back, and they honored his choice. That night, Jin Hyuk and Maya celebrated with champagne on their balcony. How does it feel? Maya asked. Being free? Terrifying, Jin Hyuk admitted. I've been that person for so long, I'm not sure who I am without it. You're Jin Hyuk, Maya said firmly. My husband. A man who makes incredible eggs. Someone with a dream of opening a restaurant. A person who values loyalty and protects the people he loves. The empire was what you did, not who you are. Jin Hyuk pulled her close, breathing in her scent. Have I told you lately that I love you? Not in the last hour, Maya teased. I was starting to worry. I love you, Maya Jean. You're my everything. I love you too, Maya whispered back. My impossible, wonderful, complicated man. 6 months after that, they opened the restaurant. A small, intimate space in Itaewon that blended Korean and Southern American cuisine. Jin Hyuk's cooking paired with Maya's event planning made it an instant success. Critics raved. Reservations booked months in advance. And every night, Maya watched Jin Hyuk in the kitchen, doing what he loved. His face relaxed in a way it never had been when he was running an empire. On their second wedding anniversary, the real one, they closed the restaurant early for a private dinner. Just the two of them, the staff dismissed, the lights low. Jin Hyuk had cooked all of Maya's favorites, a fusion of kimchi mac and cheese, bulgogi with a southern spice rub, sweet potato dessert with Korean honey. I have something to tell you, Maya said as they finished eating. Her heart raced with nerves and excitement. Jin Hyuk's eyes sharpened. Good news or bad news? Good news. Great news, actually. Maya took his hand, placing it on her still flat stomach. We're pregnant. About 8 weeks along. Jin Hyuk's expression cycled through shock, disbelief, and then pure joy. Pregnant? We're having a baby. We're having a baby, Maya confirmed, laughing as Jin Hyuk pulled her into his arms, spinning her around carefully. A baby, he repeated, wonder in his voice. Our baby. Maya, I don't even have words. I know. I found out yesterday, and I've been dying to tell you. Maya cupped his face. Are you happy? Happy doesn't begin to cover it, Jin Hyuk said, kissing her softly. Terrified, excited, overwhelmed, grateful. You've given me everything, Maya. A real marriage, a new life, and now this. I don't deserve you. You deserve all of it, Maya assured him. And you're going to be an amazing father. They spent the rest of the night talking about the future, about nursery designs and names, and whether their child would inherit Jin Hyuk's cooking skills or Maya's business sense. It was perfect, this life they'd built from lies and danger and unexpected love. 7 months later, on a spring morning, Maya gave birth to a baby girl. She had Jin Hyuk's dark eyes and Maya's smile, and when Jin Hyuk held her for the first time, tears streaming down his face, Maya knew they'd finally made it. From that first night in the bar to this moment, they'd survived betrayal, danger, doubt, and fear. And they'd come out the other side stronger, together, a family. What should we name her? Jin Hyuk asked, unable to look away from his daughter. Maya thought about everything they'd been through, about the grandmother who'd loved Jin-hyuk unconditionally, about new beginnings and second chances. Grace. Grace Jean. Because she's proof that grace can come from the most unexpected places. Grace, Jin-hyuk repeated, smiling through tears. It's perfect. She's perfect. You're perfect. We're perfect, Maya corrected. All three of us together. And as the sun rose over Seoul, painting their hospital room in golden light, Maya reflected on the impossible journey that had brought her here. A destroyed bottle of whiskey, a contract marriage, a mafia boss with a hidden heart, and a love neither of them had been looking for but both desperately needed. It wasn't the story she'd imagined for herself, but it was better than